Have you ever felt ignored when something's wrong? This story will make you question everything about trust. Let's dive in.
What do you do when your own family, the people who should protect you, ignore your cries for help? Well, that was exactly what happened to me. My name is Emily, and I'm just like any other teenager. Or, at least, I thought I was. For weeks, I had been feeling off. At first, it was just a small cough, a tickle in my throat. I figured it was nothing, just a little cold. But it didn't go away. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. My parents, especially my mom, didn't seem to think it was a big deal. "You're overreacting," my mom said one evening, her voice dismissive as I tried to explain that the coughing had gotten worse. The exhaustion was overwhelming. It was like my body was shutting down, but no one cared to listen. "It's just stress, sweetie," my dad added, as if that explained everything. He was always busy with work, and my mom was constantly preoccupied with errands and housework. I felt invisible. I tried to go to school, despite the constant coughing fits, the dizziness, and the general feeling that something was terribly wrong. But each time I tried to tell someone, they'd brush it off. "You're fine," they'd say. "It's just a phase." That night, it was the worst it had ever been. I was sitting at the dinner table, barely able to hold myself up. I coughed so violently, I thought I might pass out. Everyone at the table just glanced at me for a second, and then went back to their conversations. No one cared. The silence in the room felt suffocating. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from me. My parents had been whispering about something, but whenever I walked into the room, they would stop talking and look away quickly. What were they hiding from me? That was when I realized I wasn't just sick. There was something deeper going on, and no one was telling me the truth. But what was it? Was it my illness they were hiding? Or was there something else going on behind the scenes?
Just a moment. Did you catch that? Emily overheard her mom saying she's not ready to know yet. What's really going on here? Why hide the truth? Let's see what happens next.
As the days went by, things didn't get any better. In fact, they only seemed to worsen. But the more I struggled, the more I realized something wasn't right. My parents knew more than they were telling me. Each day felt like a constant battle. The coughing fit would come in waves, sharp, jagged bursts that took all my energy. My chest felt tight, and I could barely catch my breath. But my mom? She still wasn't convinced it was serious. "It's just allergies," she said one morning as I clutched my throat, trying to hide how terrified I was. "Take some medicine, and you'll be fine." But something inside me told me this was more than just a cold. I couldn't breathe right. My skin was paler than usual, and I felt like I was losing weight without even trying. And then there was the dizziness, the lightheadedness that wouldn't go away. I had to sit down in the middle of class once because I felt like I was going to collapse. But my teacher just told me to drink water and shake it off. Everyone brushed it off, like I was exaggerating. My mom and dad always seemed so distant from what I was going through. They were busy with their own lives. My dad was buried in work, my mom running errands, always too tired to notice. I wondered, did they really care? Or was it something else? I started to notice little things. My mom would disappear into the other room when I tried to talk to her about how bad it was getting. My dad was always on his phone, barely listening. It wasn't like they were neglecting me on purpose. It was almost like they didn't want to know the truth. It felt like I was begging for help, and no one wanted to hear it. But the worst part? I overheard them. One night, I woke up in the middle of the night, needing some water, when I heard voices in the living room. My mom was talking to someone on the phone. "She's not ready to know yet," she whispered urgently. I don't want her to find out. I froze in the doorway. Who was she talking to? And what was I not ready to know? I had to know. What was my mom hiding? What was so dangerous that I wasn't ready to hear it? I needed answers, and I was determined to get them. But as I would soon find out, the truth wasn't what I expected. And when I finally uncovered it, everything changed.
Hold on a second. Emily just found those medical papers hidden in her mom's drawer. What's going on here? Why would her mom hide something like that? Let's dig deeper and find out.
That conversation my mom had was the turning point. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong, and I needed to know what it was, no matter what it took. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that my mom was hiding something. I had to confront her. But I didn't know how to start. How do you ask your mom what she's keeping from you without sounding like you've lost your mind? I decided to wait. I wasn't going to ask her outright yet, but I needed answers. I spent the day watching for signs. I paid attention to the way she acted when I coughed or complained about feeling sick. Nothing changed. She just brushed it off like it was nothing. The constant denial was maddening. That afternoon, I decided to do something I'd never considered before. I went into my mom's room. Normally, I never snooped, but something told me that this time, I had to. I started searching through her drawers, and then I found it. Hidden under a stack of magazines was a folder. The folder was thick, filled with papers, and each one looked official. Medical documents. I opened the folder slowly, my hands shaking. What was I about to find? Was this the truth? The first document I saw was a medical record with my mom's name on it. It looked like test results, and the date on it was only a few years ago. The words that stood out to me were chronic condition and progressive symptoms. That was when the panic set in. Could my mom have the same thing I was going through? Just as I started to process this, I heard footsteps behind me. My heart raced. I quickly shoved the papers back into the drawer and slammed it shut, hoping I wasn't caught. My mom entered the room, her eyes locking on mine. For a split second, I saw something in her expression. Fear. And then it disappeared, replaced by a forced smile. "What are you doing in here?" she asked, her voice soft but stern. I couldn't lie. "I was just looking for something. A book," I said, my voice shaking. She didn't seem convinced, but she didn't push it. She just gave me a long, silent look before walking out of the room. I had to know the truth. Was my mom's illness connected to mine? What were they hiding? I wasn't going to stop until I figured it out. But, as I would soon find out, uncovering the truth would come with consequences I wasn't prepared for.
Hang on. Emily's mom just admitted she's been hiding her condition all along. But why? And what did Emily overhear about not being ready to know yet? This is getting intense. Let's find out why.
The next day, I couldn't keep my mind off the folder I found in my mom's drawer. What I saw on those papers, it was a diagnosis. My mom had been dealing with a chronic condition, and her symptoms were remarkably similar to mine. It wasn't just a coincidence anymore. That evening, I confronted her again. This time, I didn't back down. I had to know. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I found the papers. You're sick, aren't you? And now I'm sick too. Is that what this is about?" For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her eyes full of guilt. Finally, she sat down next to me on the couch. Her voice was barely above a whisper. It's true, she admitted, her eyes welling up. I've been dealing with this for years. It's a genetic condition, something that can get worse over time. I didn't want you to go through it, Emily. I didn't want you to feel the same fear that I felt when I was your age. I was speechless. My mother, who had always been strong, always seemed in control, was sick. And it was that same illness I was starting to feel creeping into my own body. It all made sense now. Her avoidance, her fear. It wasn't because she didn't care. She didn't want me to go through the same thing she did. I felt this immense wave of relief, but at the same time, a crushing weight. I wasn't alone. But the truth hit me hard. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, too. I could see my mom's fear in her eyes. The woman I had spent my whole life relying on was terrified of something she couldn't control. And now, I was going to have to face the same battle. I didn't know how to tell you, she continued. I didn't want you to feel the same hopelessness. But it's not the end, Emily. You're strong. We'll figure this out. Tears filled my eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of comfort. It wasn't easy to know that this battle wasn't over, but it wasn't something I had to fight alone anymore. Over the next few months, my relationship with my parents began to shift. There was an understanding now, a bond built on truth. My mom started seeking treatment for her condition more openly, and I began to follow the same path. But there were still consequences. My dad, who had been distant during all of this, had to face the reality of how little he had been involved. His guilt was evident, but he knew he couldn't undo the past. My friends, too, began to understand. They had seen me struggling, but they didn't know why I had been withdrawing. Now, they stood by me as I went through treatments and began to recover. The emotional weight was still there, but the support system around me made it bearable. I wasn't cured, but I wasn't the same person either. I had grown. I had faced something no one should ever have to face, but I learned that the truth, no matter how painful, had a way of freeing you. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't alone. The coughing stopped, my energy returned. But more than that, I had learned to trust my family again, even when they couldn't be perfect. Sometimes, it's the hardest truths that make us stronger. As I walked into the living room that evening, I saw my mom and dad sitting together. For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw them truly connected. And I realized that we could face whatever came next, together. This conclusion provides the logical resolution by explaining what Emily discovered, resolving the mystery around her illness, and addressing the emotional and social consequences of the family's secrets. It delivers a strong emotional payoff as Emily and her family come to terms with the truth, while also showing the lasting impact of these revelations. The final resolution moment gives closure to the story, showing how Emily's situation has changed for the better and hinting at the ongoing strength she's gained from her journey.
Whoa, what a twist! Did you see that coming? Hit like if you were shocked, and don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments below.